With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Toby on with me, and Toby works in the holistic healing field, and he has several extremely interesting encounters and experiences to share. Toby, welcome on the show.
Shannon, it is so good to be here with you. I have loved your show for a long time.
Well, thank you very much. Then I really appreciate you reaching out and being willing to come on and share. And it sounds like not only do you have some of your own experiences, but you also have experiences with, you kind of mentioned the word clients when we first hopped on, and we will get more into that. But I think probably then a good place to start is not only your own, what sound like personal gifts, right? But also the kind of work that you do.
Yeah, so I am a soul coach. So it's a life coach, but I help people on the energetic, soulful level. My biggest passion is helping people really get in touch with why did I come to this crazy planet? Because it's crazy here sometimes, and it's really tough to be here sometimes. But if you remember, oh yeah, that's what I signed up for. I came here to share this thing or that thing or this and that. And when we remember what we're here for, it makes it easier to deal with some of the craziness and chaos that happens on this planet. And I know probably every generation thinks this, Shannon, but I really believe we are living through a very unprecedented time. And even though we got to have our seatbelts on because it's a rough and rocky ride right now, we are going to, in our lifetimes, see something that's far better than what we could imagine right now. I don't exactly know what that is. And I know at times when we look at the situation, it doesn't look like that. But we are going to come out on the other side of the insanity, not in a perfect world, not in a utopia, but in a much higher frequency, higher vibe consciousness, people relating in community, liking each other, loving each other, getting along, helping and support each other in a grassroots sort of way.
So right out of the gate, I have a question that's going to take us slightly off track, but it's just kind of like a quick question, I suppose. And then I want to go back to you personally and what got you into this. But you mentioned the two words, higher frequency. And sometimes that comes up when we were talking with folks that have had Bigfoot encounters that maybe are a little bit more on the quote unquote woo side. People don't like that word, but they're trying to ignore it as long as they can. But something else is maybe going on here. And at least with some people, they are tied in a very different way, and they have very different experiences in that they can essentially get messages telepathically from Bigfoot, or the Bigfoot is kind of going, well, I'll show myself to you, but your friend over there is not in the club. Does that tie in then with this term higher frequency? Is that exactly what's going on there? Is that those people are vibrating at that higher frequency that the Bigfoot either they just are more interested in those people, or they like those people more? That's maybe a very boiled down way to put it, but what's going on there, you think?
Absolutely. Well, here's a good grounded 3D world example. I imagine, like me, you have looked at the world and scratched your head and gone, how on earth do all these people not understand what's really going on here? Have you ever felt that way?
Yeah, I have. I definitely have felt that way. Yeah, or at least that they just won't outright dismiss every single strange thing that people are talking about.
Yeah. So there is a frequency of deception. There's a frequency of truth. There's a lot of different frequencies. I am not someone that can see everything that happens in the spirit realm at all. I definitely have encounters with it. I definitely get some beautiful, high vibe, soulful information, but I don't sense and see everything. There are people who are also really drawn to like really connecting with the dark stuff, or they have a lot of encounters with the dark stuff, even if they don't want to. And that's not to say they're a bad person. Maybe part of their purpose is to notice and be aware of the darker side of spirituality. But we all have different frequencies we are naturally able to tune into. I've never encountered a Bigfoot, so I might not be at that frequency. But hopefully that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means I'm not tuned in to that frequency specifically.
So you do think that may be what's going on there, is they are tuned into the very same radio station, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the electromagnetic spectrum, it goes all the way from like gamma rays and, alpha waves to infrared, ultraviolet. The visible spectrum of the electromagnetic frequency is tiny. It's minuscule. It's a very small percentage of the whole spectrum of frequency that we even know about through regular physics. And who knows what's beyond that frequency band even. But we can't see most of it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We just don't have the sensitivity to see it.
So let's zip back to you personally and how you got into this. How did you realize that you had certain abilities or interests in things like this to move you into this kind of work that you do today?
Well, I grew up in a very religious family and grew up Southern Baptist. And if I put it this way, there's so much great about how I grew up. But when it comes to the woo-woo and the spiritual, the Baptists are pretty white bread boring, like there's no interest, or they don't really delve into the supernatural very much. I ended up going to a Baptist university in grad school, and while I was there, I met some people who were part of what we might call more charismatic churches, or if you want to use a more slang term, holy roller churches. And that was fascinating. That was part of my training ground. Like, I realized there that it's okay to explore sensitivities to the unseen, tap into information. They didn't use those terms there, but I was able to realize, holy cow, if I pray, I can listen and get answers and information also, not just make prayer into a laundry list that God needs to get around to. So it was a really good time in those churches. I would say the downside in those churches was there was a bit of a fear that there's a demon under every rock trying to get you. And I love alternative media, probably like you. And, a lot of times I will hear that in the alternative media realm, like be it a political podcast or a paranormal podcast. There are some people who think every unseen spirit is a demon, out to get you. And I kind of learned there, okay, we got to have a little balance here. We got to have a little groundedness, a little balance in our approach to all of this. But I started getting messages from within. I started feeling words. If I'd close my eyes in prayer and meditation, I started seeing imagery, and it had symbolic meaning. And usually it wasn't literal, but it would have very strong symbolic meaning. Kind of like dreams. If you interpret your dreams and go, oh my gosh, that's what that meant. Well, I was having that with my waking meditative visions in my third eye. And that helped me really open up to the possibilities. I'm not religious now. I am deeply spiritual. And my goal in saying that is, I know there's some people who would say, if you say you're spiritual, you're following the devil or what have you. But, I have the gift of discernment. I can sense between what is truthful, what is deceptive. I can sense what is of the light, not of the light, what is for the highest good, what is not. And we all can develop that. It's just that most people don't. And that's kind of where I'm at with it now. It led me down a non-religious path of finding God, universe, source, creator, whatever term you want to use, in my own unique way. And I'm still uncovering that mystery and probably keep uncovering that mystery as long as I live. There will always be parts of God that are mysterious. But I love helping people on that journey. I love helping people realize that the stuff they've dismissed or written off as too crazy or their imagination actually has value and meaning and purpose in their life.
Now, you did mention, which rightfully so, the D word, demon, comes up quite a bit. And it's a big, sexy, scary word, and it's a buzzword, and you cannot label everything the D word. However, one of the first things on your list has to do with the D word.
Yeah, it does. I before I jump into this story, it's the scariest energetic experience I've ever had with the dark side. But I also learned that if you fear the darkness, it has power. That it feeds off of fear. So if you fear it and have terror of it, it's just gonna play havoc with you. If you do not feed it fear, it's like a popped balloon that just deflates to nothing. So I don't fear it and I don't play with it. It's not a toy, but I don't fear it. So with that, I spent a little over a year living on the big island of Hawaii in 2015 and 2016. And it was so good. I'd been working full time for nonprofits, really not loving it. And I wanted to move into this coaching realm. And it gave me this time to really hone my skills, sharpen my skills, practice what I do now. And I spent a lot of time doing this coaching work one on one with people, even leading some meditation groups, doing things like that at a retreat center. Loved it. It was the best time, best way for me to practice what I do now. I met a friend who is very uniquely gifted. When I met her, I was instantly struck with awe. Like I could just feel this, whoa, she is powerful. And I'm a little intimidated by her, but I love her. And I won't use her name, but let's just call her, I don't know. I'll make up a name, Jenny. Jenny, such a powerful, unique being. And we're still friends to this day. But long story short, I did some intuitive coaching for her and I tuned in. I said, let's go sit somewhere quiet by the ocean and I'll tune in and see what's coming up. And I tune in, Shannon, and the first thing I see is a ventriloquist dummy that looked a little bit like Chucky, but it wasn't exactly Chucky. But does that give you an idea of how creepy it was?
Right out of the gate, there's a big old bag of nope.
And this is all in my third eye, it's intuitive. But Shannon, I'll watch my language. Holy cow. I'm as silly as Sonic mocking Chucky ventriloquist doll was the freakiest, scariest thing I've ever not just seen in my third eye, but felt. I could feel waves of terror coming towards me from this thing. And it was mocking. It really does look like a ventriloquist dummy and a bit like Chucky, but it's like got this mocking, how Chucky mocks anyway. It's that kind of a vibe. And it was so dark. And I tell my friend, I say, I don't know what the heck this is, but it's scaring the crap out of me. And it's terrifying. And she goes, I know exactly what that is. And I say, well, please tell me because I don't know and I don't like it. And she said, it is the demon that has followed me around. She's from a foreign country. I won't say where, but she's from a foreign country. She says, oh yeah, it follows me around. And it tells me I'm going to get you just like I got your mom and your sister. So long story short, my friend and I were both in our mid-30s at that time. And her mom and her sister had both committed suicide around the age of 37. I think they both did it at the age of 37. She's approaching that age. And this thing has said, I'm going to get you like I got them. And she's terrified. Fortunately, we are both in our mid-40s now and very much alive and kicking. So that didn't happen. I'm so grateful that she had the wherewithal, the inner strength, the support around her to not go down that same path. But, it was, when I tuned in a bit further, I realized that there was a family curse, a literal curse. Like some of her male ancestors had done some really nasty things. Some people in that country that they had immigrated to put a curse on them because of the nastiness they had done. I'm not justifying, I'm not defending, what's done was done, but this curse had multi-generational impacts on her family, and she is the only one with the wherewithal to break it. But I've never seen anything that scary, Shannon, and if I thought about that thing or saw that thing in my vision again, for months afterwards, terror would rise up in me. terror, like literal terror. And when I would feel the terror, I'd go, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I would hear that divine voice within go, don't feed it fear. If you fear it, it's more powerful. If you don't fear it, it has nothing. It is nothing without fear. And I learned that and I realized that. And wow, that completely set me free. So the demonic, the darkness does exist, fear and terror of it? No, because that's giving our power away. And it takes our power from that. But knowing it's there, and there are times we have to be aware of it. Aware, but not paranoid. That's what I say about it.
So when she would see this thing, I mean, had she ever seen it in person, or was it always, in meditation spaces like you were in?
No, she would be. I remember her saying something like she had been on public transport back in the big city near where she lived, and she had seen it out and about in the city, like mocking her in the city. I think with her eyes open.
Oh.
Now, again, that's probably one of those frequency things where the other people, I don't know if it was like a bus or a train or what, like maybe they didn't see it, but she did.
Right.
That sort of thing. Yeah. And I only saw it with my eyes closed in my third eye. I didn't see it physically, but the power it had, it must have had the ability to feed on other people's fear. And probably for a moment, it got fear out of me and got some fuel, and then not anymore. It doesn't get that from me anymore. So I'm not afraid. I'm not going to play with it, but I'm not afraid.
So being that her mother and sister both committed suicide, horrible, of course, did you get any more information as far as, did the curse originate, from a matriarchal side or patriarchal side, like way back in the day? Like, where did it start? Did anybody get information like that?
It felt like it was more the matriarchal side. Her father has his own issues. He's alive, but he's not. Her mother and sister suffered from severe mental health issues, which, in all honesty, yes, there are mental health issues that exist, but there are times that that's influenced by the spirit realm. But I also look at it like this, Shannon. I've met a few people who were labeled as, mentally ill, or sometimes people would call them crazy. And really, if they'd been born in a different society in a different time, they would have been the shamans, the healers. They just had a sensitivity to the spirit realm. But in our modern world, they didn't have a support around them or a framework in which to exercise their gifts. So they're labeled as crazy. And then they believe themselves to be crazy because there's no one understands them. Dear friend of mine, his mother committed suicide. Never met her, but I have sensed her, felt her, connected with her energy on the other side. Holy cow, she was one of those. She was labeled as crazy from a young age. That one, I just see it. She definitely was abused, we'll say, as a child. And she never was able to cope. She never had a support system around her that understood her gifts and abilities. And she turned to substances. And in later adulthood, she, committed suicide. Very sad, very tragic. But she had the gifts, the abilities to be a healer and a shaman. And it's just sad that we don't have the kind of support for people like that. Can I share, just on a side note with that same thing? I want to share this. This is really beautiful. When I moved to Hawaii and spent a year there, it was so powerful, such a powerful place. The veil between the visible and invisible realm is so thin there that there's a lot of crossover between the spirit realm and the human realm. But I met this woman. We'll make up a name for her. We'll call her, I don't know, Anne. And when I met her, had so many health problems, and she wasn't even old. She was just probably early 30s, but she had tremors. It looked like Parkinson's, but it was from medication. Poor Anne was in Hawaii trying to heal herself, which I commend her for. But she, from a young age, had been labeled crazy by her family, and she came from an affluent family that took her to psychiatrists and just drugged her to death with psychotropic meds. And she had so many drugs that she had multiple side effects: extreme weight gain, tremors, severe anxiety. And a lot of this was side effects of medication. I told her, I said, you're gifted, you're sensitive, you always have been. Your family just wanted to not deal with you. They didn't understand it. So they're like, let's just send her to the doctor, and whatever the doctor says, we're going to do. And she struggled because of that. But I'm so proud of her. She, on her own, said, you know what? There's a better way. And I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to find it. And she went to Hawaii and she lived simply. She worked with the doctor that helped her over the course of a year wean off every psychotropic med. And she learned, I think from the same doctor and others, how to, let's say, self-medicate with a certain green substance. And she actually uses that medicinally, and it helps her immensely. She turned her whole life around. She is the picture of health and fitness now. She doesn't have tremors. She's calm but focused. She's creating things. She's doing things. She's happy. She's aware of her sensitivities to the spirit realm and the unseen, and she embraces it now. But I'm so proud of her. She figured it out. She didn't go down that tragic road that others have.
So, Toby, speaking about death and suicide, if you listen to some religions, specific religions, they say if you commit suicide, you're going to hell. Like, they don't care how good of a person you were up until that very moment that you decided to do that, and then you actually executed that act. You are going to hell. Have you ever had any inkling when you were, in a meditation or speaking to a client or any kind of encounter that made you think that was in fact true, that maybe hell is a real place, or, maybe not with the fire and the brimstone and the demons scratching at your Achilles tendon, but what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I want to share another crazy one with you. So when I was back in Hawaii, that place has had such a massive impact on my life, but I'm not a frequent partaker in plant medicines, shall we say, at all. But there are times when there have been special opportunities to partake. And one time I did, and there was this young woman. She was only 24, but it was the craziest thing. She wanted to be a plant medicine shaman. And when I would look at her, even with my eyes open, I'd get glimpses of like a 90-year-old wise great-grandmother. It was so trippy because I don't tend to see a lot of spirit stuff with my eyes open, but I could get glimpses of it with her. Anyway, she held space for my friend and I to have a little ceremony with some plant medicines. I had some personal healing to do, and I'm crying and all this stuff is happening. But what was crazy is my friend whose mom had committed suicide, not the mom and sister, the other one, his mom had committed suicide. I never met her in person. I became friends with him after she had done that, but she showed up there. I was very firm with her. I said, you are such a great spirit, but you're a little too attached to your son, and you're not fully released over into where you need to be. You belong in the light. You belong totally at peace on the other side. It doesn't mean you can't still love and support your son from the other side, but you're a little too attached to him. And I was very firm with her, and I kind of pushed her into crossing over. And whatever she crossed over into did not feel like hell, shall we say. It felt like peace, if that makes sense. But this was so crazy. I helped her cross over, and I didn't tell my friend about it because I thought, well, I don't want him to be mad. So the next day I was talking to my friend who was back in California on the phone, and he was just telling me the craziest thing happened. Last night I fell asleep on the couch instead of going upstairs to bed, and I heard a noise about 3:00 in the morning. And I look over, and there's a rat on the staircase. And I had a pillow with me, and I pulled the pillowcase off, caught the rat on the spindle of the staircase, tied up the pillowcase, ran it outside to let it go, and it wouldn't move. I had injured the rat when I took it outside. And I said, well, that's sad. And he said, yeah, it wouldn't move. And it was pregnant. I could tell it had a bloated abdomen. It was a pregnant female rat. And I felt so bad that I had injured it, maybe paralyzed it or something, that I couldn't stand to see it suffer. I was crying, and I put it out of its misery, and I buried it in the yard and cried. And in my mind, Shannon, I'm going, holy cow, he actually fully released his mom to the other side. This is the same day I had done the plant medicine thing. Same day, the night of that day. I was like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't tell him. I was like, I don't want him to be mad that I crossed his mom over. It took me a year before I told him. I said, remember that rat? Well, and I told him the whole story. I said, I think that was your mom letting go of the earth plane fully and going to be at peace. And he goes, 100%. And he was happy that I'd done it. But I can't tell you exactly where she's at. All I know is she's able to kind of send love and support from a place of greater peace rather than a place of being attached to regret on the earth plane, if that makes sense.
That doesn't sound like an eternal damnation situation to me. So that's good, right?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, if there is a hell, some people do deserve to be down there, and we don't need to go into who those people are. People that do really dark stuff, to like kids and things like that. That's where I want hell to be a real place, with the demons scratching your bowels outside every single day. Okay, so how about the house that was built on a Native American portal?
Oh man, this is interesting. So I've lived in this house. I've lived in this house since 2006. I bought it in 2013 with my former partner, and then we decided to not be partners anymore, but be family and friends and still live together. So we still own it together. Long story short, this house was built in 1938. Old Tudor style house. Oh man, I love my house. It's old. It's just dripping with charm and good energy. And people always stare at my house when they drive by, and you see them outside on the sidewalk staring at it, because it's just a unique house and it's got an energy to it. I do think this house drew me here. And I'd say about 5, at most 6 years ago, probably 5 years ago, I was out in the front yard on a Saturday afternoon doing some yard work. And this car drives by, and this man jumps out of it as it's still moving. And he runs towards me, and his wife is like, honey, I hadn't even parked yet. Couldn't you wait? And she's yelling at him, and he's running towards me. He's like, do you live here? Is this your house? And I'm like, yeah. So his wife parks, and wife and daughter get out. She's about 15 or 16. They all come over, and we start talking, and he's like, I grew up in this house. And Shannon, I've had some experiences in the house with the house before, so I had some curiosity. I'm like, oh man, I wonder if he's got some haunted stories about the house. And it's not bad, but definitely had some energy things happen in this house for sure. So we start talking, and he's telling me about growing up here. And he said, I don't remember who brought it up, but somehow we get on the topic. I might have even just asked, did you ever have any interesting experiences in the house? And it opened the door, and he just launches in. So here's the trippy thing. This man, he probably was in his mid-50s at the time. He's retired military. When I asked him what he did in the military, he said, have you ever seen that movie Men Who Stare at Goats? And I said, no, but I know what it's about. It's the psychic spies. He goes, yeah. And that's all he said. So
yeah, that's all he could say.
Yeah, apparently he was like some kind of psychic spy, remote viewer kind of thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Then he goes on to tell me he doesn't say what he does now, but he owns a business that does military contracting, and his business is somewhere out in the desert near Las Vegas, which is what else is near Las Vegas out in the desert? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just thinking Area 51 or something in my head. I mean, I don't know, but
The stories that dude could tell, he's like, oh, you only, like, he's like, yeah, I end up at Area 51, but there's a door in a mountain that I actually go in to get there, like.
Exactly. Oh, I don't know. It's the craziest thing. But I have to tell you, the whole time they're there, and he's so nice. His wife is a little more reserved, but he is just outgoing and nice. But Shannon, I have to tell you, I had the weirdest feeling the whole time they're there. We to kind of spend some time with them. I had the weirdest feeling the whole time they were there that there was something he was not telling me. I'm not saying it was bad or nefarious, but he had an unspoken reason for being there. Strong, strong feeling about that. And I told him, about the house, and he told me a lot more about the woman who had built it. His mom had bought the house when he was 9 or 10, I think, from the first owner who'd lived here for like 40 years. And she didn't die in the house, but she was interesting for sure. But his mom bought the house, they lived here. And then he told me something about he had opened a portal in the house. He said, yeah, when I was a teenager, I found this book about opening portals and I read it and I tried it. So he opened a portal.
Whoopsie.
Here. I know, which I'm not a big fan of doing that. And he told me about that. And I want to get back to the older portal that's here in a bit, so don't let me forget. But there's just the whole time he's telling me, oh yeah, and he's talking about sensitivities and things. And I love spirit realm and all that. So I'm just like, they're telling me about his mom who had owned the house and she had passed, and their daughter that was there too. They all missed the grandmother so much. And I said, well, do you want to just do a meditation and send her some love and light? And they said, yeah. So we stand in my living room, which is where the portal had been opened in a circle, which probably wasn't smart. I wasn't even thinking about that. And I just kind of guided a quick meditation. And Shannon, a huge whoosh of energy ran through my body. I don't know if it was her. I don't know what it was. I've experienced that only a handful of times in my life, and I don't like it when it happens. It was intense. It didn't feel good. I don't know what it was, but it was intense. And it was when we were doing that meditation. They ended up leaving. Shannon, there was something he wasn't telling me. I don't know what it was. The paranoid part of my brain was like, oh my gosh, he was sent to spy on me. I don't think that's what it was. But it was just interesting. It was almost like, oh, we know who you are and what you do, but not in a nefarious or threatening way. That's kind of the feeling I got from it. Was like, we just want to check in, let you know we know who you are and what you do. It was weird. It was weird. So I did get a call from him within the past year, and I was freaked out and didn't answer the phone. I didn't want to talk to him. I just was like, I don't know if I want to open that door anymore. I will say, though, I had another friend more of an acquaintance, who's a psychic medium, and she came to the house, and I didn't ask her to read the house. She starts reading it, and she's tapping into the woman who had been the first owner, and she's telling me she sees the woman and an older man here, and they're fighting a lot. And we're walking around the property, and we go upstairs to this window in the upstairs hallway that faces west. And she goes, I feel like I'm her, and I don't want to be here in this house. I want to be over there. And she starts pointing to the west, and she keeps doing it adamantly. I want to be over there. I don't want to be here. I want to be over there. And I'm mad that I can't be over there. So, this woman says to me, Toby, what's over there? And I go, well, there's a fancier, even older neighborhood nearby, excuse me, that, less than a mile away. Maybe that's where she wanted to be. So it turns out this woman's dad had given her the money to build the house. And according to the medium, she had wanted him to give her more money so she could be in a bigger house in the fancy neighborhood instead of the house she got here, which is fine. But anyway, that was pretty interesting. And then she went on to tell me, I think this woman did seances here on your living room floor. She opened a portal. She was doing seances here. And I see the residue. It's closed now, but I see the residue of the portal on your living room floor. But she went on to tell me, I see under your house a much older portal that's very much Native American, and it has a healing energy to it. It's not a bad thing, and it's still active and open. So that's the portal info on this house. Definitely a beautiful vibe and energy here for sure. In the garden, it's pretty magic. I mean, I'm in the city, surrounded by miles and miles of city, but I get occasionally coyotes, I get hawks, I get raccoons, possums, squirrels, every kind of bird. I mean, it's like a little magical forest right here.
That military remote viewer was dying to tell you that he released the actual beast into the house, that beast, through his portal makings. That is interesting. Now, I mean, don't you kind of wonder what he was going to tell you over the phone recently?
Man, Shannon, I'm so uncomfortable now with it, because I was just super open and friendly with him and his family. And when I looked back on it, I thought and reflected more on what my intuition was telling me. Not bad or evil per se, but like there's something unspoken. There's something he's not telling you about. And I just don't know. The secrecy kind of freaked me out. It really did.
Well, and what if he, tells you something that ends up getting, black vehicles, black aircraft over your house, right? Like within hours, and you're like, gosh, dang it, I knew I shouldn't have listened. I should have picked up that phone.
That's exactly what I don't want. I don't want men in black showing up at my house.
Those dang portals, they're always just honing right in on those things,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do hear that time and again, of somehow, whether it's a dog man being shot story or somebody seeing some kind of craft maybe they weren't supposed to see. It runs the gamut that then these strange, quote unquote, people, if they're people, show up. They're fascinated by pencils and they can't quite get their words right. And you're like, who in the heck are you, man? You are not from around here, are you?
No.
You don't need that.
I've heard enough paranormal podcasts to know I don't need the men in black.
No.
Or the men who stare at goats involved with my home.
Well, you already had one of those. You just don't need all his buddies coming around for barbecues,
Exactly right.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, I'm pretty, especially as of late, I've been listening to some old Art Bell shows that I know I've heard before, but they're always great to go back and listen to. And, remote viewing was always one that he was fascinated by beyond his favorite, which was time travel. And just hearing what these folks are capable of is just astonishing. But it's, it's a fine line between, and I guess it's all semantics and wording, but it's all the same thing, psychic, remote viewer, astral travel, or OBE. I guess you could kind of meld those all under the same bullet point list in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, do you think maybe this thought just popped into my head, because it is strange that you are who you are and have these gifts, and then you have this remote viewer that actually did work for the military and was out here in the desert in my neck of the woods. Why the fact that you all lived in the same house at some point and you're in the same house now, that's kind of strange, right? I mean, that's a little weird.
Absolutely. And he commented on it. He was like, I'm so glad that there's someone who does the kind of work you do living here. He was like really happy about that. I don't know if he said, I think the house called us both here, but it kind of felt like that. I don't remember him actually saying those words, and it did make me think at the time, well, I wonder if this house property, because of the older good portal that's here.
Maybe he was there to recruit you.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that. I'm not here to serve that, whatever he's working for necessarily.
Gonna stay away from that machine.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that machine. That's not what I'm here for. I know that's not what I'm here for. So, yeah, I think I might pass on that. I am so curious. I'd kind of like to talk to him some more, but I feel like I'm almost afraid it's Pandora's Box.
Well, and not only that, but I think that especially people like you, if your intuition is saying that, I would hazard to say you better stick with that intuition. Whereas I'd be like, oh, there's so and so. Let me just pick the phone right up and because I just, as you mentioned, curiosity, and you know what it does to the cat. Well, I'm that cat because I'm like, I need something to happen, so let me poke that bear. No, I think you're probably right in that. If that's where your gut is telling you to go, nope, that's a bag of nope. Stay away, Toby. Then you probably should. So. This is a really dark question, and it's very like out of CSI or something stupid. But you brought up like, oh, there was seances like right here in this living room and on this floor. Have you ever? Again, very dark, and very like I watch too many serial killer movies, and obviously I love it too much, but. Have you ever taken a black light out or a, luminol? If you can get a hold of luminol, is there, you know what I mean? Like, is there any weird stuff drawn in any nefarious bodily substances in your house anywhere? How dark did the seances get?
Oh my gosh! Now I'm real scared, Shannon. I don't know if I want to. Is that another Pandora's Box? Reminds me of
it would be
episode of The Office where they're at a hotel for a convention and Steve Carell turns on the black light and the hotel
big mistake.
All glow.
He's like, can I just take back the last 10 seconds of my memory and not turn this on? That was a great episode. Love The Office.
A good one.
Oh my God, he was just partying by himself too. No, but I just. Because so many of these seances are very dark, and the whole reason they do them is for dark things, right? There's power in the dark and the light, and I don't know, that popped into my head. I apologize. Never mind. Let's take out those 10 seconds of questions.
No. You know what? Let me tell you what else the medium said. Now this is the medium. I know she has a gift. Is what she told me 100% accurate? I'm not really sure. He said, Toby, I feel like the woman who first lived here, I keep seeing her having like younger women come here to do seances and circles. And I feel like she's taking advantage of them. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, I feel like they're younger than her, like hopefully no younger than college age, but they're like, she's like, trying to seduce the one she's interested in. I'm like, what? Back in like the 40s and 50s? And she's like, yeah, wow. That's the sense I get from her. So apparently she was a theater teacher. So I hope to God it was not high school girls. Maybe she was involved with the local college or something doing theater. I don't know, but I hope that's not true. But I was like, God, I don't want to think of some like creepy perv lady living in my house creeping on younger women.
Yeah, it's just like running a brothel or something. God knows what. Well, maybe I'm not too far off. I'd hate to think that was the case, but that is
I mean, the energy here now is good, and the only writing I've seen is in my closet. I have one of these. I have weird roof angles, so you open this little half closet door. It's like a 3-foot tall door, and you can crawl in there. And the guy who came to visit, I think, is the one who wrote it, but he wrote stuff about Farrah Fawcett and Freddie Mercury inside the wall of the closet in the 70s. I said, are you the one that wrote this? He's like, yeah, that was me. This was my room. That was my closet.
Like, what did he write?
Something about, I'd have to look at it. I'm not sure if I want to crawl through the mouse droppings into that.
No, don't literally. No, that's okay.
Something about Freddie Mercury and Farrah Fawcett in kids' handwriting. So I'm like, okay, that's not too nefarious.
Okay, he was like a kid, just
it was like kids' handwriting.
Love you,
like
Freddie.
Freddie Mercury rules or something.
I gotcha. Okay, that helped my dark brain calm down a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably like Farrah Fawcett is hot or whatever they said in the 70s. Groovy, maybe. I don't know.
All right, good. See, you just shut my dark passenger down a little bit with that, because I was going to like, oh, here we go. Shannon's going on another path down the dark side. But no, the passenger has been calmed.
Not too crazy.
All right. Well, still very interesting. If the man who stares at goats wants to call me, I'll pick up. We don't have to talk about Toby's house, though. Toby doesn't want to know, and I don't blame him.
I think I got his phone number. I can send it to you.
Oh God, can you imagine? He's like, who is this rando? Of course he might know I'm gonna call, right? But
that's exactly right. He's listening right now.
He's like, someone is talking about me. He's like holding his head like, these people. It does make me wonder. I know that there are very, very talented remote viewers out there. You're just like, I know they have to have a certain target, and there's a protocol, right? That's the word that they have to do to call you call the target to you, like on Robin Hood, when they're shooting the arrows. But I am fascinated by that big time. But hey, he can call me, and we'll see what goes down.
He did imply that he was kind of recruited into that because they knew he had played around and that he had sensitivities and abilities.
See, Toby, and that's crazy because that has come up before, and you're going, but how in the hell do they know? And sometimes they know when these folks are quite young, like in, late teens, early 20s, and they're not out like on a billboard going, look at me, look what I can do. How the hell do they find these people? How?
Well, I have a friend who was in the Air Force, and it is a whole episode, so I won't go into the whole thing, but let's suffice it to say she got involved with some, how do we say it? Like, she calls it black ops, but kind of like interdimensional kind of stuff, maybe we could say, at one point during her career. And I don't want to go into the whole can of worms of, the Corey Good and the secret space program, but it kind of ties in with that. But let's just say when I intuitively tuned into it, what I saw was her strapped to a medical table in a medical facility, injected with something. And I see her consciousness being used and tapped into. So what she thought was like multi-month or year kind of missions, I saw happening like in an afternoon, strapped to a table and her consciousness being tapped into to go do these things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain it better than that, but let's just say, man, she struggles with being fully grounded into this reality now. And she's been out for a long time, out of the military for a long time. But really struggles with being grounded into 3D reality.
Well, I could only imagine, the kinds of tests that we know that the military has run on people. They had no mercy. So.
Oh. And she says, but I consented to be a part of this. And I'm like, but I don't think you knew what you were consenting to be a part of. It wasn't informed consent.
Right.
Oh.
Right. You're going to come with us for an afternoon and need therapy for the rest of your life, and you'll never sleep again. How lovely. There you go. Thanks a lot. Sign on the dotted line, right? So next on your list, we've got your grandmother and grandfather both visiting you.
Mm-hmm. Man, this was so cool. So I'm not like a full on medium where, I see everyone's dead relatives around them. But I've definitely had experiences. And for me, the most powerful ones have been within my own family. My grandmother died in 2014. She was the last grandparent to go. The week she died, she came to me in a dream, I don't know, 6-7 days before she died. And in the dream, she said, Toby, I don't know. She just starts talking to me, and she is very coherent. In real life, she had dementia, like severe dementia. Her mind was gone. But my grandmother was so coherent, and she told me a lot of things. And I barely woke up from the dream in the middle of the night and thought, I better write this down. I better write this down. And I conked right back out and didn't write it down. When I woke up, I couldn't remember all that she'd said. All I could remember is that I was so excited that she was coherent, and it felt so good to be talking to her. And I was so mad at myself that I didn't write it down, Shannon, and I was, kicking myself. Well, about 3 or 4 days later, I went to a yoga class, and at the end during Savasana, the part where you lay down, she comes to me audibly within, and I hear her say, Toby, I've had a good life and it's time for me to go now. I want you to know that I love you. And I was able to silently say back to her, I love you so much. I'm so grateful for all that you've been. And you don't have to stick around here and suffer anymore. You deserve to go be at peace and have fun on the other side. So my mom and aunt, they're devastated because their mom had died and they're very religious. And I thought, oh, are they going to be able to handle me telling them? And I told them and they were happy because they're so emotional. They weren't able to feel anything like that. And to get some reassurance that she's good, she's at peace, she was ready to move on. And a few months later, my grandmother, who was very proper and straight-laced, everything had to be proper and clean and put in its place. And, she was kind of no nonsense. In my dream, she comes to me wearing yoga pants, a 80s sweatband around her head, and she does the splits in my dream. Now, I don't think literally my grandmother's doing that on the other side, but she did that to show me I'm having fun and I am way more adventurous and fun and chill on the other side than I was when I was down there. But it was such a happy dream. She was just wanting me to show me in a way I could understand. She's having crazy fun adventures and playful. Her husband died, in like 1982 probably. So I was really little. I remember him, but not well. In 2020, during the craziness, like early on in all that, April of 2020, I'm at home and he comes to me and he says, grab your journal and a pen. I got stuff to tell you. And this was audible, more internal audible. When I say audible, I don't mean my physical ears heard it, but internally I'm hearing it. I'm like, okay. We called him Paw Paw. I said, all right, Paw Paw, what you got? He gave me 4 pages. And Shannon, he kind of, how do we say it nicely, ripped me a new one in a good way, but he called me out on some stuff in regards to family. I wasn't speaking to my parents. I was holding stuff against them, grudges, anger, bitterness. He's like, son, you need to get over yourself. You are judging your mom, which was his daughter. You are judging her for judging you. Well, if you want the judgment to stop, then stop judging her. Get over yourself. And then he throws in some humor, and I'm actually laughing as he's, chewing me out in a good way. And Shannon, that really turned it around. I mean, it got me to go, all right, I need to let go. I need to quit having expectations of my parents to be any different than they are. And I just need to just love and accept them as they are. And when I did that, Shannon, it changed everything. I actually like being around them now. I like going to visit. Man, my family has healed in ways I didn't know possible. All because I listened to Paw Paw and his 4 pages of notes. And he told me stuff too that was so powerful. Long story short, he had a tragic childhood. My grandmother had a tragic childhood. When he was in high school, his one and only older brother, they were real close, his older brother got murdered the day of his graduation back in the 30s. Apparently there was a scandalous pregnancy and he claims he didn't do it, but I don't know what the truth is. He may have, and the dad and brother of the pregnant teen mom came to him with the shotgun and said, you're going to marry her or you're going to die. And he said, wasn't me. I'm not marrying her. And they shot him and killed him. And I don't want to go off the paranormal too much, but back in that time, Texas had a female governor. Something Hogg was their last name, Hogg. If you paid him some money, he would get her to pardon your family member or friend or whoever you wanted pardoned. So the guy that shot my great uncle got pardoned. He was in prison. He got pardoned because his family had money and paid the governor's husband, and he got pardoned. So anyway, my pawpaw had that tragedy. My mawmaw had even worse tragedies in her childhood. And he told me in that time, he said, you know what? We didn't have therapists back then. We didn't go to counselors and psychiatrists and psychologists. We just pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps and went forward. But I tell you what, it may have been unspoken. Your mama and I probably never talked out loud about our pain and our tragedies, but we had the deepest understanding of each other that no one could. how did he say it? Something like no one could understand how deep our love was for each other, particularly because we had an unspoken understanding of each other. And it was just so beautiful. I mean, I was crying because he gave me a sense of the feeling of the depth of love and understanding they had for each other. It was so beautiful. So, yeah, my living family is in such a better place than I ever thought possible. I have a long lost cousin on my dad's side of the family, the other side of the family, that I didn't know very well growing up. She was 12 years older than me. She had a career in the military, and then she got out and she became a Chinese medicine doctor. And she's awesome, Shannon. Like, we reconnected in 2020 also, and I've been up to visit her. She's been to see me. And I held an ancestral healing retreat in Mexico back in January. And I was surprised, but she signed up and came, and it was so, so awesome. Like, to see someone else in my family tap into the spirit realm and the woo-woo and the energy healing was really cool, because, it's easy to think you're the only one. It was so powerful. So all that to say, one of my favorite things to do is family healing, ancestral healing, family tree healing. So often the clients that come to me are the only ones in their family who are willing to look at these things, open to the possibilities of the unseen realm. So often the ones that come to me are the ones that are the only ones in their family to break the family patterns that are toxic, break the family curses if there are any. It's fun. It's intense, family healing and all that, but man, it's beautiful.
Well, since you brought that up, why don't you pick us an encounter or two, an experience or two from that realm and talk about it?
Absolutely. Let me go. We're in a place called Tepoztlan, Mexico. It's about a little over an hour south of Mexico City. Beautiful valley surrounded by these tall cliff rock formations, and the mountaintops look like mushrooms. Some of them, it's crazy. It looks like mushrooms, but they're rock formations. Definitely a place where the spirit realm bleeds over into the 3D. And I picked it because it's a powerful place to do this kind of healing work. So we go there, having a great time. And one of my retreat attendees has, he's got Mexican ancestry, which includes Spanish ancestry. And while we're on that retreat, he's having some pretty powerful experiences with that. He's like, Toby, I saw that I had a conquistador ancestor, and he now on the other side is feeling all this remorse and guilt, about the bloodshed, the killing, the taking over. And, and I have both sides of me. I have Spanish, I have indigenous in my ancestry, and I feel this being torn. But it was so beautiful because during that retreat, he was able to bring healing and resolution, and this ancestor that he was sensing both in his dreams that week and in our meditations and our group work. He was able to bring a peace and a calm and a healing there, and a kind of like a renewal, like okay, we all do bad things. We can all redeem, we can all heal. And he said he felt like he helped that. If I remember correctly, I believe he said he felt like he was able to help that ancestor let go of all the regret and cross over to a place of peace. The interesting thing, to tie in a little more freaky paranormal to that week, same retreat attendee who's very sensitive, and he always says, Toby, this stuff only happens to me when I'm around you. And I say, no, it doesn't. He says, well, it happens more to me when I'm around you. So maybe I kind of activate this stuff in people. But he said the last night of retreat, actually our last morning of retreat, he comes to me and says, Toby, I have to tell you about my dream last night. And I said, well, we're almost at the end of retreat. We got closing circle. We got, group stuff to do. Tell me about it afterwards. So afterwards, he tells me, and Shannon, this was trippy. I won't go off too much on a tangent, but in this work that I do, I had some learning to do. And part of the learning was I kept encountering narcissists, spiritual people, spiritual teachers who were extreme narcissists. And I thought I could, grow because of them. No, I don't need them anymore, that's for sure. But one of those narcissists I met was let's just say a spiritual teacher healer who she lives in, I'll give the country. That's all I'll give. But she lives in Ireland, and she had invited me over twice in the past to help with retreats. First time I went, it was great. It was awesome. I loved it. I didn't make much money at all, but I loved the experience and I was happy to go. Second time I went, she was god awful to me. It's like a flip switched. She invited me and then she acted god awful to me. And what I realized was she and some of these other spiritual teachers that I've encountered, for whatever reason, wanted my energy. I don't know why, but they wanted my energy. And there was this weird jealousy thing. And Shannon, she was successful. She owned a yoga studio, a healing business, and she had like a salon on top of that. She had all these 3 businesses and she was very successful. She had like a Mercedes convertible. She's doing great. And I'm like, why on earth would you be jealous of me? But it was weird. Anyway, this woman, like some of the others I've encountered, talks about love and light and Reiki and all these things. Shannon, she was practicing black magic behind the scenes. And when I say black magic, sometimes it looks like, putting curses and spells on people, but sometimes black magic is just as simple as trying to override someone's free will. I'm going to get them to do what I want them to do, whether it's a love potion or a curse, to me, the definition of black magic is trying to override someone's free will. Well, she was so awful to me. I never dealt with her again. I had to do some healing after that. It hurt. I was frustrated. I spent a lot of money to go to Ireland. She barely gave me any money for helping with the retreat. It was terrible, but I didn't have any more contact with her. Over time, I did some writing, forgiveness, letting go, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of forgot about her, but I knew I could feel it. She was like trying to do energetic stuff to me from afar. I could feel it. Last September, I went to visit my friend in Utah and her family, and she has a teenage daughter that's very intuitive. And we showed her daughter a picture of this woman. We didn't tell her anything about the woman. We just said, "What do you think of this woman?" And her teenage daughter goes, "Oh, get that away from me." She did not like that energy of her picture, explaining who she is and, my experience with her. And their son's in there too. The lights of the house start flickering. Their house is only like 7, 8 years old. The lights in the house start flickering as I'm telling the story about this woman. And they're all like, "Oh my God, it's her." They're all freaked out. So fast forward to the retreat in January. We're on the retreat, last night of the retreat, my friend's like, "I got to tell you about my dream." And so after the retreat's over, he tells me, he said, "Toby, I dreamed that we were on a retreat, but it wasn't this one. It was somewhere else in the US, and you had rented like a big Airbnb property. And we had just finished something, and I walk into the kitchen by myself, and everyone else is outside. And when I walk in the kitchen, there is a blonde woman in the kitchen. I say, "Can I help you?" And she tries to tell me, "Oh, I'm the owner of this place." My friend was like, well, I didn't believe her. It didn't feel like she was being honest with me. And anyway, he was like, "Toby, I had the weirdest feeling that she had come there to murder you in this dream." And then he told me the blonde woman, grabbed a knife from the kitchen table, tries to stab him, and he has to wrestle it away from her. In the dream, he stabs her. She's on the floor bleeding. Right after that happens, I walk in. He said, "Toby, you looked at her and you had the look of horror because there's a dying woman on the floor, but also a look of recognition, like you knew her. And then right after you walked in, her body just evaporated and disappeared. Blood, body, everything just disappeared." So I'm like, what the heck? So Shannon, I scratched my head for a minute going, okay, blonde woman that I seem to have known, who would it have been? And my mind goes, oh my gosh, it had to be her. So I find a picture of her. I send it to him. I was like, is this her? He was like, oh my God, it's her. So she couldn't get to me because I'd put up boundaries and energy protection and all that. So she comes after someone in the dreamscape on one of my retreats. Didn't do any damage. She can't, but it was really weird. So,
and he, prior to this dream, he didn't know what she looked like. He didn't know the backstory, nothing.
No.
Oh my goodness. That's trippy.
It took me a moment to put two and two together. Okay, blonde woman. This feels like powerful dark energy. Who would it be? Who would it be? Oh my God, it was her. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. And that's when I sent him the picture. And then I had to tell him the story of who she was.
So do you think that she's some sort of essentially like an energy vampire, and that's what helps her to gain all these powers to turn into, she obviously wants, things, right? She likes the cars and the shops and the this and
material stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. God, that's creepy. So have you felt her or quote unquote heard from her since then?
No, that was January. I don't contact her. I don't have anything to do with her.
Oh, that was this past January.
Yeah, that was just this January.
Gollies.
Yeah. And the last time I saw her was 2019. It was the last time I went to Ireland. But I think she was psychically keeping tabs on what I was doing. And she's like, because I unfollowed. I don't remember if I blocked, but I unfollowed, unfriended on social media. So I wasn't following her and she wasn't following me, but maybe she could still see my stuff. I'm not sure, but I do know she was psychically keeping tabs. And I think she was like, Toby's having a retreat. Perfect chance to dive in.
Question.
Yeah.
Why be an a-hole to you? Wouldn't it make more sense to be your best buddy in the whole freaking world to keep you close? Her tactic seems the exact opposite of what she should have done that second time that you were in her presence.
Let me put it this way. From the best I can tell, and she is a carbon copy energetically of several other people I've encountered. What I've realized, Shannon, is I am so human. I got plenty of imperfections, but I genuinely, sincerely try to be as real and authentic and loving and from the best place I can be in this work. And I am not making a lot of money off of this. I'd love to make a lot of money, but I don't make a lot of money. But it's not the most important thing. I need to be able to get by. And here's the thing. The universe always meets my needs, always. Sometimes there's a little extra, sometimes not. But I'm grateful for that. I'm able to sustain in what I do, but I'm not someone who is super money focused. And some of these people I've met in this spiritual healer realm are very materialistic, money obsessed, and narcissists. It's common, but you're going to see narcissists anywhere you go in this world. But the ones who are getting to the spiritual realm, some of them actually do have spiritual abilities. They work with those spiritual abilities to either vampire off of others, to take advantage of others, to black magic. And again, by that, I just mean override people's free will. I think what I've noticed is, because as imperfect as I am, as maybe not financially successful as I am, there's something about my approach that's genuine and authentic. And for whatever reason, that's the thing that makes these people jealous. It's weird. They're all more financially successful than me. And I'm like, why are you jealous? And it's not about money. It's about energy. And I don't let them energy vampire off of me anymore. I did it one time. I drew them in like moths to the flame, but I don't anymore. So I'm not encountering those kinds of people anymore. And I had to learn from that. I had really had to learn from that. And it was hard and it was painful. And there was another one I got involved with doing some collaborations. And I was so frustrated with that one that I couldn't let it go. I was angry and not truly forgiving. And I told myself, I forgave. I'm all over it. And I kept having dreams about this guy. And my dreams kept happening because it was my subconscious saying, yeah, you haven't really forgiven yet. You got some more work to do there. So I haven't had any dreams about that one in a while, so I think I'm doing pretty good there. But yeah, in anything, and this has been a lifelong thing, growing up in the church, we had 3 pastors that were narcissists who preyed upon people, and a music minister also who did that. I saw it from a young age. People who get the spotlight, people who are like seen as spiritual leaders or teachers, whether it's in the church or not, it does tend to draw narcissists. Man, I'm still doing some work around that and trying to heal that and let go of, the frustration of that. But I got a little work to do around that still. But I'm not drawing them to me anymore in terms of like they want to collaborate with me or, vampire my energy or anything.
Just got to put the bug zapper up. You use I constantly use that whole moth to the flame thing. I'm like, put that bug zapper right up.
Absolutely.
Because we don't want all the moths. Not all the moths are that good. They're invasive sometimes.
Yeah. But one thing I've noticed is I would say one of the most vital tools for not just surviving in this world right now, but thriving in it is discernment. Discernment is kind of amorphous, woo-woo spiritual maybe, but it is a gift and ability that we can all develop. And if we develop it and trust it, it's going to protect us from people who have bad intentions, and it's going to help us feel and sense the right path, like the good stuff, where we need to go for the good stuff.
So before we leave Mexico, can we talk about the haunted restaurant?
Heck yeah. Oh man, that was trippy. So we had there's a little old pyramid, like an old, I believe it was the Aztecs who lived in that area. Yeah, it was the Aztecs. Old Aztec pyramid on top of on that town where we had our retreat. And I had planned like tour guides to take us up there, and we're going to go up there and, hike up to it. And we had to take cabs to get there because we were too big to fit in one vehicle, too big of a group. So I got in the very last cab and I was later than everyone else. And the tour guide took off without me. And I'm like, well, that's kind of crappy. I like to keep my group together when I have a group. I was a little upset. But I start trying to catch up with them, and I see one of my group members by herself, and I'm just livid at this point. Like, you do not leave a group member behind. So I said, well, what's going on? And, she had some knee issues. And I said, they just left you? She said, no, I just told them to go on. They wanted to get to the pyramid before it closed. So I'm not happy because that is not how you handle a group. But anyway, I just say, well, if your knee's bothering you, is everyone else with the tour guides? She's like, yeah, they're all with tour guides. I said, okay, why don't you and me just go find a place to have a coffee or something? She's like, yeah, that'd be cool. So we, it's gorgeous there, big old ancient trees, cobblestone streets and walls, working its way up this mountainside to where the pyramid is. And we find this courtyard restaurant. It's like you have to walk down these stone steps and over like a dried creek bed to get to it. Giant trees, big old garden terraces. It's really pretty, but it does feel a little eerie because we're the only ones in this restaurant. We walk in, we get a table, we're sitting there, we start talking, and we're talking about, we're doing all this spiritual healing, ancestral healing all week. We've been in a heightened energy state. We're talking, and all of a sudden I take a sip of my coffee and I feel this whoosh of energy through me. And it's almost just the same as the whoosh I felt when the psychic spy guy was at my house. And it didn't feel good. And it freaked me out, Shannon. I thought my coffee was poisoned. And I look at her, my eyes get giant. And she looks back at me and goes, no, Toby, I feel it too. And I even said out loud, I said, did they poison our drinks? And she goes, no, it's energy. And I'm like, whew, at least I'm not poisoned. So I was scared because it was my very first sip of this coffee. So, and she says right after that she saw like what looked like a ghostly waiter off in this corner of the restaurant. I didn't see him from my perspective, but she said she saw him, and then he kind of just disappeared. And so That was pretty trippy. And my Spanish is so. I asked him if there were any spirits in the restaurant, and he's like, I don't know about here. I haven't ever seen anything here, but there's something at my house that always moves objects around. So he like
Mm.
watches objects move around. But again, we're in this very mystical place that is like, you think about Mount Shasta, Sedona, places like that are pretty energetic hotspots. This place is kind of like that. It's an energetic hotspot for sure.
Well, you brought up Mount Shasta, and that is what closes your list. So let's talk about that place.
Heck yeah. Probably my favorite place in California. Not probably, definitely my favorite place in California for sure. I wish I lived a little closer to it. It's a long drive. I usually fly when I go there. I was having Big Island Hawaii withdrawals when I came back to California, and I missed it so much. But I started, going up to visit Mount Shasta sometimes. And the very first time I went, I had some potent experiences. Like I had a meditation up on the mountain that was just like, whoa. I closed my eyes and I get to this place. It's like I was kind of like beamed into this place. It's a table and there's all these people sitting around it. And I get there and this jolly guy greets me. And I just know instantly he's the Apostle Peter from the Bible stories. And he's super, larger than life, jolly, laugh, stick his foot in his mouth kind of guy, but good heart. And he's like, come on in, come sit at the table with us. And this table is like spiritual gurus and ascended masters, but it was just so down to earth, like, come on in, welcome, everyone's welcome here, not like we're superior to you. It was like this down to earth, welcome, loving kind of environment. And I don't remember like learning information there, but just to be kind of welcomed in, hey, everyone's welcome here, let go of hierarchy sort of thing was pretty cool to get that sense. There's a lava tube north of Mount Shasta a ways, not too far, but not right next to the mountain. And lava tubes are crazy things. A little quick science lesson: when lava flows like a river, sometimes it's flowing at the surface, the top will start to cool off, but the hot lava is still flowing underneath that cooled off top because the air exposure cools it off. And so you've got like this tube, this long tube, and there's not as much lava flowing, and then it quits flowing altogether. And it just leaves like a long hollow tube that can be miles and miles long, but it's near the surface of the earth usually. Well, there's a, lava tube there. I won't say its name or where it's at because people know it, but there's certain places that's just kind of nice to leave like mysterious. I remember going there the first time, and I went with two very spiritual friends, and we go all the way to the end where it's pitch black, half, 3/4 of a mile in, and that's the end. You can't go any further. We do this meditation, powerful energy. We can feel like all this energy coming up from the core of the earth. Powerful stuff. I heard the message, the solutions that the earth and the planet need come from the earth, the wisdom of the earth itself. Like there's knowledge and wisdom stored in the earth, and we just got to tap into that and stop listening to bozos for our solutions. But anyway, I went there right after my experience with my grandfather in the journal. A month later, I went on a trip with my parents there. 2020, my parents drive out from Texas. I fly up from Southern California. We meet in Sacramento and go up to Mount Shasta, and I take them on the mountain. They love it. I take them to this lava tube. We get to the lava tube, Shannon, and there's a white owl in the entrance, and it takes off and spreads its wings. And I'm just like, whoa. We're all like, whoa. It was so powerful. It just was like this healing energy for my family. I've also taken pictures, and a friend took a picture inside of the lava tube without flash. Or maybe there was flash. Oh my gosh, I can't remember, Shannon. No, there was flash. Both of us, though, have taken pictures in there and had like brilliant violet purple light show up in our pictures. If it had just happened once, I would have been like, whatever. But I did it and my friend did it, and it's trippy. It is trippy. Like energy showing up in photos. I took a retreat group to Mount Shasta in 2021, and we went into that lava tube, and there was a woman there who had just some physical mobility challenges. And so I helped her, I escorted her. I had her, she grabbed onto my arm and held me, and I walked her. And I said, we're not going to go too deep. I just want to get us all into the entrance so that we can do a group meditation. So she said, yeah, I want to go. And I help her, and we get down into the entrance, and I say, you and I aren't going any further. And right after that, she lets go of me, and we're just standing there and we're not walking. And she starts to fall. There's another woman there who's quite a bit older. She's an older woman, and she grabs her. And I watched this whole thing happen in slow motion. It was so trippy. The other woman grabs her. She puts her hand on her head, and they, in slow motion, fall to the ground together. That woman's hand kept the woman with the mobility challenges from bonking her head on a rock. All that happened was the older woman had a scratch and a little blood. That was it. But Shannon, it was trippy. Like, my reflexes didn't kick in. I didn't jump. It was like everything happened in slow motion. It was like unseen forces were putting them into slow motion as they slowly fall to the ground. It was so trippy. So there's some power there. There's some real magic there.
Yeah, all kinds of oddities around Mount Shasta for sure. Well, Toby, did you want to give out contact info for yourself? And if not, it's not a problem. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, my website is shekholistic.com. That's SHEK holistic. SHEKHOLISTIC.com. I do one-on-one coaching. I do weekly Zoom consciousness mindfulness workshops to help people, in a group setting on Zoom, set themselves free, let go of stuff, process, heal, activate. I do retreats. I do, all that kind of stuff. Love my work. So much fun. The spirit realm is interesting. We don't need to fear it. We don't need to be paranoid about it. With a little mindfulness, it can enhance and bless our path, our lives, our journey, and enrich it so much. If we fear it, we miss out on a lot of good stuff. But yeah, it is absolutely a daily part of my life. It just seems normal now to have kind of spiritual experiences and paranormal type experiences. But it's cool. I'll even throw in a 25% off a one-on-one for your listeners and do a coupon code. We'll call it ITF25. I'll write that down.
Boom.
All caps ITF25.
ITF25, everybody, at shekholistic.com. And then, of course, it'll be in the show notes. But thank you for that as well, Toby. So 25% off for anybody that wants to speak to Toby. It sounds like he's got all kinds of different modalities that he can utilize. So might want to take him up on that. Well, yeah, I can't say that I'm not a little jealous, So if that goat starer calls you again, just in your mind, you don't have to answer. Just like in your mind, go, just find Shannon's number. Maybe she'll chat with you. Yeah. Because I don't blame you for not picking up. You're like, I got enough. Like, I live in the house. I don't need to know. I don't need to know. You don't need
I do not need black helicopters at my house, Shannon.
Not fun. You start looking like Ray Liotta in Goodfellas. You know what I mean? You just get real paranoid. So just without all the cocaine, So, well, Toby, thank you so much for coming on to chat with me today.
Shannon, this has been awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate that, like I said in my email, the warmth and kindness you show to people come on here. We can tell you genuinely care about people and you love the topic, but you care about people more than most. And that's just awesome.